I am Walter Anderson. I am 70 years old, and for the last 6 months I have been mourning my wife Julia, the woman who was my entire world for 45 years. My son Ryan and my daughter-in-law Megan insisted I was too heartbroken, too old to be alone. They insisted I take this trip to Miami. "Get some sun, Dad," Megan had said, her smile so wide and caring. "We'll handle everything back in Chicago." And oh, they handled it. At 5:01 this morning, my private phone rang, ripping through the silence of my hotel suite. It was Mike, the head of security at my Chicago penthouse. His voice was tight with panic. "Mr. Anderson, we have a situation. The main alarm on 30A is blaring. Your son and daughter-in-law are at the door." I sat up. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even surprised. I had been waiting for this call. "They have a key, Mike. What's the problem?" "That's just it, sir. Their code failed 3 times. And now Mrs. Anderson is in the main lobby. She's screaming at my staff. She's claiming she's the new owner. She's threatening to have us all fired if we don't shut it off." I reached for the iPad on the nightstand. The screen glowed, showing me 4 perfect high-definition angles of my own home. And there she was, Megan. Her face was red, contorted with rage, pounding on the solid oak door. My son Ryan stood behind her, wringing his hands, looking like a scared little boy. "She's the new owner, is she?" I whispered to myself. She just couldn't wait. "Sir," Mike said, his voice trembling. She's telling my men that you've been declared mentally incompetent. She has papers. Sir, should I call the Chicago PD?" A smile spread across my face. It was the first real smile I'd felt since Julia's funeral. "No police, Mike." "But sir—" "Mike," I said, and my voice was calm, clear steel. "I want you to go up there right now, use your master override, and you open that door." "You want me to let them in, sir, the alarm?" "Let it shriek. Let the whole building hear it. Just open the door. Mrs. Anderson is about to get a surprise." I hung up. I watched the screen. I saw Mike appear. I saw him swipe his card. The heavy door swung open. The alarm was deafening, a piercing wail designed to wake the dead. Megan shoved past him, dragging Ryan by the arm. She didn't even look at Mike. She was a woman on a mission. "Turn that damn thing off!" she shrieked. "I can't, ma'am," Mike said, playing his part perfectly. "Only Mr. Anderson has the new code." "It doesn't matter," Megan yelled, her voice cutting through the alarm. She was marching straight for my study. "We just need the papers, Ryan. Get the safe." I leaned back against the plush pillows of my Miami hotel bed. I turned up the volume on the iPad. This was the part I had been waiting for. This wasn't just about the $3 million penthouse. This wasn't even about the $4 million she had already stolen from me. This was about what she did. How she preyed on my grief. How she sat with me, holding my hand, telling me she would take care of me while her other hand was feeding me pills to make me confused. She tried to turn me into a helpless, drooling old fool. But she forgot one thing. I am Walter Anderson. I spent 40 years building skyscrapers out of nothing but dirt and steel. I know how to spot a weak foundation. I know how to read a blueprint. And I always know, when to set a trap. Before I tell you exactly what that greedy fool found waiting for her inside my safe, I want to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop your city in the comments below. And please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you believe that underestimating your elders is the last mistake anyone should ever make. You're going to want to hear the rest of this, the story. It starts 6 months ago, the day I buried my wife. It all started 6 months ago, the day I buried Julia. The rain was cold, a relentless Chicago drizzle that soaked through my black wool coat. I stood there 70 years old and feeling every single day of it, watching the polished casket lower into the earth. 45 years. How do you say goodbye to 45 years? You don't. A piece of you just gets buried right alongside them. I was barely aware of the umbrella over my head. My son Ryan stood on one side, his face pale and weak, looking lost. On my other side was Megan, my daughter-in-law. She was the strong one. She held my arm, her grip firm, supportive. She was the perfect picture of a grieving, dutiful daughter. "Dad," she whispered, her voice full of carefully crafted sympathy. "It's okay. You don't have to worry about anything. Ryan and I are here now. We're going to take care of you." I just nodded, numb. The words didn't really register. Nothing did except the hollow, aching void where my wife used to be. They drove me home to the large $4 million house in the suburbs that Julia and I had built together brick by brick. The house where we raised Ryan. The house where every room, every hallway, every corner held a memory. As I walked in, the silence was deafening. The smell of Julia's roses in the foyer was gone. The sound of her laughing in the kitchen, gone. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a mausoleum. A 4,000-square-foot tomb of memories I couldn't bear to face. I sat in my study that night, staring at an empty chair. Megan came in balancing a tray with a cup of tea. "I brought you some chamomile, Dad," she said softly. "It'll help you sleep." I took it. I drank it. I didn't realize at the time that it was more than just tea. It was the beginning. She was already starting testing me, seeing how pliable I was, how much I would accept from her caring, gentle hand. "You shouldn't be here alone," she said, kneeling by my chair, her eyes full of concern. "This house, it's too much for you now. Too many ghosts." She was right. I couldn't breathe in that house. I couldn't think. Every part of me wanted to run. "We'll handle it, Dad," she said, taking my hand. "Ryan and I will take care of everything. You just focus on getting better." And I, lost in my fog of grief, believed her. I leaned on her. I trusted her. I let her take charge. That was my first mistake. A week later, the house was filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I was sitting in my study, just staring at the wall, when Megan and Ryan came in. They sat down opposite me, their faces arranged in masks of solemn concern. Megan leaned forward, her hands clasped. "Dad," she began, her voice soft, almost a purr. "Ryan and I have been doing a lot of thinking. We're worried about you. Being here alone, it's just not good for your health." I just nodded, too tired to argue. The house felt like a coffin. "We think," she continued, "that you deserve to be somewhere lighter, somewhere you can be taken care of." Ryan cleared his throat. "Yeah, Dad, somewhere safe." "Exactly," Megan said, picking up the thread. "So we had an idea. This house, it's too much. The maintenance, the property taxes, the memories. Why don't we sell it?" I looked at her, my mind foggy from the pills she kept telling me were for stress. Sell it. The idea was shocking, but it also felt like a release. "Yes, we could take the money. It's a $4 million property, Dad, at least, and we could buy you a beautiful new penthouse in downtown Chicago, right on the Magnificent Mile. Think about it. 24/7 security, a doorman, no stairs to worry about, no lawn to mow, no roof to fix." She was selling it, and in my weakened state, I was buying. "You'd have views of the lake," she went on, her eyes bright. "A concierge service. You wouldn't have to lift a finger. You've worked hard your entire life, Walter. You've built an empire. It's time for you to finally just enjoy it. Let us handle the hard stuff." A penthouse. It sounded so sterile. So, not Julia. But the alternative was staying here, drowning in the past. I don't know, Megan. Paperwork, lawyers. I can't think about all that right now. You don't have to. she said, her smile instant and radiant. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to do anything. Ryan, my son, my only son, finally spoke up, looking at his hands. She's right, Dad. Megan knows all about this stuff. All that time she spent at the bank. She knows real estate trusts all of it. We can set it up perfectly. You won't have to worry about a single bill. I looked at my son. I saw his weak chin, his eyes that couldn't meet mine. He wasn't a leader. He was a follower, and he was following his wife. But I was his father, and I was tired. So tired. I wanted the pain to stop. I wanted the emptiness to go away. And they were offering me an escape. A clean, modern, simple escape. Okay, I whispered. The word felt heavy. Okay, kids. If you think it's for the best. Megan's face lit up with a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. She disguised it quickly, replacing it with a look of relief. Oh, Dad, that's wonderful. You're making such a smart decision. She squeezed my hand. Her skin was cold. We'll take care of everything. We'll find the perfect place. We'll handle the sale, the purchase. Everything. I trust you, I said. And those two words sealed my fate. It all happened incredibly fast. Megan was a whirlwind of efficiency. Within 2 weeks, she had the house on the market. She brought a stack of papers to my study. A stack so thick it looked like a phone book. What's all this? I asked, my head already aching. Just the standard paperwork, Dad, she said, breezy, pulling out a pen. This is the listing agreement for the sale of this house. This is the power of attorney so I can sign the closing documents on your behalf. You don't want to sit in a stuffy office for 3 hours, do you? No, I suppose not. And these, she said, tapping the largest stack, are the documents to set up the new trust for the penthouse. It's just a legal thing. It protects the asset. My lawyer said it's the smartest way to do it for tax purposes. It just means all the bills for the new place. The HOA fees, the taxes. They get paid automatically. You won't have to think about a thing. I looked at the pages. Legal jargon swam in front of my eyes. Irrevocable. Trustee. Beneficiary. Words that meant nothing to me. I was a man of concrete and rebar, not fine print. Megan, it's a lot. Don't read it, Dad, she said, her voice soothing, just like the tea she brought me every night. That's what you have me for. I've read every word. It's all standard. It just protects you. It protects your new home. Now, just sign here, and here, and here. She pushed the papers in front of me. I looked at Ryan. He was standing by the window looking out at the garden Julia had loved. He wouldn't turn around. I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking slightly. It's okay, Dad, Megan whispered. We're here. We'll take care of you. I signed. I signed away my home. I signed away my $4 million. I signed away my entire life, and I didn't even know it. I moved into the $3 million penthouse a month later. It was exactly as she had described. New, clean, impressive. It sat high above Chicago, looking down on the lake like the eye of God. The walls were all glass. The furniture was all sharp angles, chrome, and cold white leather. There wasn't a single photograph, not a single worn book. It was the loneliest place I had ever been. But Megan and Ryan were perfect. For the first few weeks, they were there every single day. Megan would arrive with groceries from the most expensive stores. Look, Dad, I got that salmon you like, she'd say, bustling around the state-of-the-art kitchen. Ryan would sit with me awkwardly, asking how I was sleeping. You're our only priority now, Dad, Megan would say, fluffing a pillow on the sofa I never sat on. Your old life is over. This is your time to just be. She took care of everything. Give me all your bills, Dad, she said one morning, sitting at my new glass desk with her laptop open. The electricity, the building fees, your credit cards. I'm going to set up a brand new automatic payment system. It'll all be handled through the new trust account. You won't have to write a single check ever again. It sounded like a blessing. I was 70 years old. I had just lost my wife. The last thing I wanted to do was argue with a bank. I handed over my statements, my account numbers, my passwords. I gave her everything. "This is just so much easier," she explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "For security, the bank will now route all confirmations through me as the trustee. It's just cleaner. It stops any potential fraud. You'd be surprised how many scammers target seniors after a loss." She made it sound like she was protecting me. I tried to log into my old savings account a week later, the account that held the $4 million from the house sale. The screen flashed red. "Access denied. Please contact your account administrator." I called Megan. "Oh, she said, laughing lightly. "That's just part of the new system, Dad. Don't you worry about that account. That's the trust's main capital account. It's not for spending. It's for investing. I've set up a brand new checking account just for you for your daily expenses. I'll transfer $5,000 into it every month. That should be more than enough for your coffee and books, right?" I guess so, Megan. Thank you." "See, nothing to worry about," she said, her voice dripping with kindness. "You just rest." And so I did. I lived in my glass cage 30 floors above the world. I was safe. I was secure. I was taken care of. I had $5,000 a month to play with. I was the perfect grieving, well-managed old man. I had no idea I was already a prisoner. I had no idea that I no longer owned a single thing to my name. This new life, this perfect retirement, continued for about a month. Megan and Ryan were true to their word. They visited constantly. But the visits began to change. They felt less like family stopping by and more like inspections. Megan started asking me strange questions. She'd sit across from me in that cold, white living room, her smile bright and fixed. "How are you sleeping, Dad? Really sleeping? Any strange dreams? Or, Dad, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? Just testing your memory. It's important to keep sharp." I'd tell her I had oatmeal, and she'd exchange this quick, subtle glance with Ryan. A look that lasted less than a second, but it felt like a door slamming shut. "That's funny," she'd say, her voice light. "I was here yesterday, and we had eggs. You don't remember that. It's okay. It's perfectly normal to be a little forgetful." But I did remember. I remembered her insisting I eat the eggs even though I wanted oatmeal. I remembered she'd said they were better for my protein levels. She was planting seeds, little seeds of doubt, not just in my mind, but in Ryan's. She was building a case, and I was the star witness against myself. She lovingly reorganized my medicine cabinet. "Dad, this is a mess. You could take the wrong pill. Let me fix it for you. I'll put everything into a weekly organizer. All you have to is pop open the little door for Monday." I thanked her. It seemed so helpful. But a few days later, I started feeling foggy. Groggy. Not myself. I'd wake up from a nap in the afternoon with no idea how much time had passed. I blamed it on my grief, on old age. I didn't realize I was being medicated. My confidence, the steel spine that had held me up for 70 years, was beginning to soften. I started to question myself. Maybe I was forgetting things. Maybe I was getting old and confused. Maybe I really did need them to manage everything for me. That's exactly where she wanted me. The first crack in her perfect facade appeared on a Tuesday. I was checking my email, one of the few things I still did for myself. And I saw a message from the building's homeowners association, the HOA. It was a generic newsletter about the swimming pool being cleaned. I almost deleted it. But something made my eye catch the greeting. It wasn't addressed to me, Walter Anderson. It read, "Dear Mrs. Megan Anderson. Owner Unit 30A. Owner. Not primary contact. Not C.O. Walter Anderson. Owner. My heart did a strange, slow tumble in my chest. It felt like stepping off a curb I didn't know was there. A mistake. It had to be a mistake. Just like she'd said. A simple, clerical error. I waited until she came by that evening bringing me a lasagna she claimed she'd slaved over, but which I knew came from the most expensive Italian deli in the city. I tried to be casual. "Megan," I said, holding up my tablet, "I got this email from the HOA today. It's addressed to you. It says you're the owner." Her smile didn't even flicker. She let out a little laugh, a perfectly rehearsed sound, like a bell. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "That's what I was talking about. Those idiots in the management office. I told them I was the primary contact, the trustee, and their tiny brains just translated that to owner. It's simpler for their paperwork, I guess." Ryan, who was staring at his phone, chimed in right on cue. "Yeah, Dad. It's just paperwork. It doesn't mean anything." "I've already called them about it, Dad," Megan said, taking the tablet from my hand and setting it face down on the table. "I gave them an earful. Don't you worry your head about it. It's handled. Now who wants lasagna?" She was so smooth, so confident. The explanation was plausible. It made sense. So why did I feel a sudden sharp chill? It was Ryan. As he said, "It doesn't mean anything." I watched him. And just for a second, his thumb, which was swiping on his phone screen, stopped. He pressed down hard. His knuckles went white. He was lying. And he was a terrible liar. My son, my own son, was in on it. And he was terrified. That night I didn't take the pill Megan had left for me in the Tuesday compartment of my new organizer. I palmed it, and when she wasn't looking, I flushed it down the toilet. I lay awake all night, my mind crystal clear for the first time in weeks. The fog was lifting, and I realized my grief hadn't been making me confused. My daughter-in-law had. It all happened incredibly fast. Megan was a whirlwind of efficiency. She had the old house sold in 2 weeks for the full $4 million asking price. She was, as Ryan kept saying, very good at this. Then came the day of the signing. She arrived at the old house where I was still packing up Julia's belongings, carrying a leather briefcase. She sat me down at the large mahogany desk in my study, the desk where I had signed countless multi-million-dollar construction contracts. She clicked open her briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers so thick it looked like a phone book. It must have been 3 inches high, bound in blue legal covers. "All right, Dad," she said, her voice bright and professional. "This is the last big hurdle, then you can relax." I looked at the stack, my head already aching. I felt foggy. The chamomile tea she'd been bringing me every night, the pills she insisted were just supplements for stress. They were all making my mind feel like it was wrapped in cotton. "My goodness, Megan," I mumbled. "What is all that?" "It's just the final paperwork, Dad," she said, breezily uncapping an expensive-looking pen. "This part here is the final sale agreement for this house. Standard. This stack is the purchase agreement for the new penthouse. Also standard. And this," she tapped the thickest pile, "this is just the boring legal stuff to set up the trust." "A trust? Yes," she said, not missing a beat. "My lawyer said it's the absolute smartest way to handle this. For tax purposes. It puts the penthouse into a protected entity. It just means all the bills, the HOA fees, the taxes, they all get paid automatically. You won't have to think about a single thing. It's just a power of attorney, really, so I can sign the closing documents on your behalf and deal with the bankers. You don't want to sit in a stuffy office for 3 hours, do you?" "No," I said, rubbing my temples. "I suppose not." "Of course not." She smiled, that warm, caring smile. "That's what I'm here for. You just need to sign in the places I've marked with these little yellow tabs." She fanned the papers out. There seemed to be hundreds of tabs. I looked at the pages. The print was tiny. Legal jargon swam in front of my eyes. Irrevocable, trustee, beneficiary, grantor, fiduciary duty. Words that meant nothing to me. I was a man of concrete and rebar, not fine print. I built things I could touch. This was just paper. Megan, I hesitated. It's a lot. Are you sure? Dad, she said, her voice turning incredibly soft, her hand covering mine. Don't you trust me? I looked at her. She was my son's wife. She had been nothing but kind to me since Julia passed. She was the one holding the family together. Of course I trust you, dear. Then don't read it. That's what you have me for. I've read every single word. My lawyer has read every word. It's all standard. It just protects you. It protects your new home. Now, just sign here. She pointed to the first yellow tab. And here. And here. I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking slightly. I glanced over at my son. Ryan had been standing by the window the entire time, his back to me, looking out at the garden Julia had loved so much. He hadn't said a word. Ryan, I said. He flinched, but he didn't turn around. She knows what she's doing, Dad. Just sign it. Let's get this over with. His voice was strained. I thought it was grief. I thought he was just as sad as I was to be leaving the house. I didn't realize it was guilt, so I signed. I signed the first page, and the next, and the next. I signed my name over and over, turning pages, my signature getting sloppier with each one. I signed away my home. I signed away my $4 million. I signed away my entire life, and I didn't even know it. When I finished, I put the pen down, my hand cramping. There, Megan said, her voice brimming with relief. She quickly, almost too quickly, gathered the pages, stacking them into a neat pile, closing the blue covers. That's it. The hard part is over. You're free, Dad. You're finally free. She put the stack into her briefcase and snapped it shut. The sound was as final as a jail door closing. I'll go file these right now, she said, kissing my cheek. You just rest. I'll call you when the new place is ready. I watched her walk out of the study, Ryan trailing silently behind her. I felt a wave of profound exhaustion, but I also felt relief. It was done. I was in their hands. I was safe. What a fool I was. I moved into the $3 million penthouse a month later. It was exactly as she had described. New, clean, impressive. It sat high above Chicago, looking down on the lake like the eye of God. The walls were all glass. The furniture was all sharp angles, chrome and cold white leather. There wasn't a single photograph, not a single worn book. It was the loneliest place I had ever been. But Megan and Ryan were perfect. For the first few weeks, they were there every single day. Megan would arrive with groceries from the most expensive stores. Look, Dad, I got that salmon you like, she'd say, bustling around the state-of-the-art kitchen. Ryan would sit with me awkwardly, asking how I was sleeping. You're our only priority now, Dad, Megan would say, fluffing a pillow on the sofa I never sat on. Your old life is over. This is your time to just be. She took care of everything. Give me all your bills, Dad, she said one morning, sitting at my new glass desk with her laptop open. The electricity, the building fees, your credit cards. I'm going to set up a brand new automatic payment system. It'll all be handled through the new trust account. You won't have to write a single check ever again. It sounded like a blessing. I was 70 years old. I had just lost my wife. The last thing I wanted to do was argue with a bank. I handed over my statements, my account numbers, my passwords. I gave her everything. This is just so much easier, she explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard. For security, the bank will now route all confirmations through me as the trustee. It's just cleaner. It stops any potential fraud. You'd be surprised how many scammers target seniors after a loss. She made it sound like she was protecting me. I felt safe. I felt looked after. For the first time since Julia's death, my mind felt quiet. I didn't have to worry about interest rates or due dates. I just had to be. The first time I realized I was locked out, I thought it was a simple mistake. I tried to log into my main savings account online, the one that held the $4 million from the house sale. I just wanted to see the number, to feel that security. The screen flashed red. Access denied. Please contact your account administrator. I called Megan. Oh, that, she said, laughing lightly. That's just part of the new system, Dad. Don't you worry about that account. That's the trust's main capital account. It's not for spending. It's for investing. I've set up a brand new checking account just for you, for your daily expenses. She explained that she would transfer $5,000 into it on the 1st of every month. That should be more than enough for your coffee and books, right? I guess so, Megan. Thank you. It's just, I like to see my own statements. It's just boring legal stuff, Dad. It's all invested in bonds. It's safer this way. It protects you from yourself from making any emotional decisions. It's what Julia would have wanted. For you to be secure. She used Julia's name. That was the final lock on the cage. How could I argue with what my sainted wife would have wanted? You're right, dear, I said. Thank you for being so thorough. See, nothing to worry about, she said, her voice dripping with kindness. You just rest. And so I did. I lived in my glass cage, 30 floors above the world. I was safe. I was secure. I was taken care of. I had $5,000 a month to play with. I was the perfect, grieving, well-managed old man. I was a prisoner, and I didn't even know it. This new life, this perfect retirement, continued for about a month. But the visits began to change. They felt less like family stopping by and more like inspections. Megan started asking me strange questions. She'd sit across from me in that cold, white living room, her smile bright and fixed. How are you sleeping, Dad? Really sleeping? Any strange dreams? Or, Dad, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? Just testing your memory. It's important to keep sharp. I'd tell her I had oatmeal, and she'd exchange this quick, subtle glance with Ryan. A look that lasted less than a second, but it felt like a door slamming shut. That's funny, she'd say, her voice light. I was here yesterday, and we had eggs. You don't remember that? It's okay. It's perfectly normal to be a little forgetful. But I did remember. I remembered her insisting I eat the eggs even though I wanted oatmeal. I remembered she'd said they were better for my protein levels. She was planting seeds. Little seeds of doubt, not just in my mind, but in Ryan's. She was building a case, and I was the star witness against myself. She lovingly reorganized my medicine cabinet. Dad, this is a mess. You could take the wrong pill. Let me fix it for you. I'll put everything into a weekly organizer. All you have to do is pop open the little door for Monday. I thanked her. It seemed so helpful. But a few days later, I started feeling foggy, groggy. Not myself. I'd wake up from a nap in the afternoon with no idea how much time had passed. I blamed it on my grief. On old age. I didn't realize I was being medicated. My confidence, the steel spine that had held me up for 70 years, was beginning to soften. I started to question myself. Maybe I was forgetting things. Maybe I was getting old and confused. Maybe I really did need them to manage everything for me. That's exactly where she wanted me. The first crack in her perfect facade appeared on a Tuesday. I was checking my email, one of the few things I still did for myself, and I saw a message from the building's homeowners association, the HOA. It was a generic newsletter about the swimming pool being cleaned. I almost deleted it. But something made my eye catch the greeting. It wasn't addressed to me, Walter Anderson. It read, Dear Mrs. Megan Anderson, owner Unit 30A. Owner, not primary contact, not CO Walter Anderson. Owner. My heart did a strange, slow tumble in my chest. It felt like stepping off a curb I didn't know was there. A mistake. It had to be a mistake. Just like she'd said. A simple, clerical error. I waited until she came by that evening, bringing me a lasagna she claimed she'd slaved over, but which I knew came from the most expensive Italian deli in the city. I tried to be casual. Megan, I said, holding up my tablet. I got this email from the HOA today. It's addressed to you. It says you're the owner. Her smile didn't even flicker. She let out a little laugh, a perfectly rehearsed sound, like a bell. Oh, for heaven's sake, she said, waving her hand dismissively. That's what I was talking about. Those idiots in the management office. I told them I was the primary contact, the trustee, and their tiny brains just translated that to owner. It's simpler for their paperwork, I guess. Ryan, who was staring at his phone, chimed in right on cue. Yeah, Dad. It's just paperwork. It doesn't mean anything. I've already called them about it, Dad, Megan said, taking the tablet from my hand and setting it face down on the table. I gave them an earful. Don't you worry your head about it. It's handled. Now who wants lasagna? She was so smooth, so confident. The explanation was plausible. It made sense. So why did I feel a sudden sharp chill? It was Ryan, as he said, it doesn't mean anything. I watched him, and just for a second, his thumb, which was swiping on his phone screen, stopped. He pressed down hard. His knuckles went white. He was lying, and he was a terrible liar. My son, my own son, was in on it, and he was terrified. That night, I didn't take the pill Megan had left for me in the Tuesday compartment of my new organizer. I palmed it, and when she wasn't looking, I flushed it down the toilet. I lay awake all night, my mind crystal clear for the first time in weeks. The fog was lifting, and I realized my grief hadn't been making me confused. My daughter-in-law had. The fog didn't set in all at once. It was gradual, a slow creeping tide of confusion that I fooled that I was blamed on grief. Megan's care was constant. After I gave her control, her daily visits became less about comfort and more about observation. She would sit across from me in that sterile white living room, her smile bright and fixed. How are you sleeping, Dad? She'd ask, her voice dripping with concern. Really sleeping. Are you having any strange dreams, any confusion when you wake up? I guess I'm sleeping okay, Megan, I'd say. Just tired. Of course you are. It's a lot to process, she'd say, patting my hand. But her eyes were sharp, calculating. They weren't the eyes of a loving daughter. They were the eyes of a scientist observing a specimen. The questions became more pointed, more frequent. Dad, she'd call out from the kitchen while I was trying to read the newspaper. What did you have for breakfast yesterday? I'd pause. Yesterday, I think oatmeal. Yes, oatmeal with raisins. She'd walk out, wiping her hands on an apron, a small, sad smile on her face. She'd exchange a quick, subtle glance with Ryan, who always seemed to be lurking in the background, staring at his phone. A look that lasted less than a second, but it felt like a door slamming shut. Oh, Dad, she'd sigh, her voice full of pity. I was here yesterday, remember? We had eggs, scrambled eggs with chives. You said you loved them. My mind would race. Had we? I couldn't be sure. The days were blurring together. Oh. Right. Eggs. Of course. My mistake. It's okay, she'd say, patting my arm. It's perfectly normal. You've been through a trauma. The doctor said we should expect this. It's important we keep your mind sharp. She was planting seeds, little seeds of doubt, and they were taking root. Then came the help with my medication. I've been on the same blood pressure pill for 20 years. I know my dosage. I know my routine. But Megan insisted I was getting it wrong. Dad, I came in this morning, and your pill bottle was on the kitchen counter, she said one afternoon, her tone one of gentle scolding. You're supposed to take it with food at 8 a.m. It's dangerous to be so careless. What if you forgot, or worse, what if you took it twice? Before I could protest, she had fixed the problem. Look, she said, holding up one of those plastic weekly organizers. I've sorted everything for you. See Monday morning, Monday night. Tuesday morning, Tuesday night. All you have to do is pop open the little door for the right day. No more guesswork. No more mistakes. This is so much safer for you. I thanked her. It seemed so helpful. She was so organized. Julia had always been the organized one. Maybe Megan was just filling that role. But a few days after I started using her pre-sorted pills, the fog truly set in. I started feeling groggy. Not just tired, groggy. My thoughts felt thick like wading through wet cement. I'd wake up from a nap on the white leather sofa in the afternoon, with no idea how much time had passed. I'd stand in the kitchen, unable to remember why I'd walked in there. Dad, I just told you that, Ryan would say, his voice edged with an impatient sigh. We're having chicken for dinner. Don't you listen? I was starting to question my own mind. My confidence, the steel spine that had held me up for 70 years, was beginning to soften. Maybe I was forgetting things. Maybe I was getting old and confused. Maybe I was a burden. Maybe I really did need them to manage every little thing for me. That's exactly where she wanted me. Helpless, doubtful, pliant. The fog was so thick I almost missed it. The first real crack in her perfect facade. It came on a Tuesday. I was checking my email, one of the few things I still did for myself, and I saw a message from the building's homeowners association, the HOA. It was a generic newsletter about the swimming pool being cleaned. I almost deleted it. But something made my eye catch the greeting. It wasn't addressed to me, Walter Anderson. It read, Dear Mrs. Megan Anderson, Owner Unit 30A. Owner. Not primary contact. Not CO Walter Anderson. Owner. My heart did a strange, slow tumble in my chest. It felt like stepping off a curb I didn't know was there. A mistake. It had to be a mistake. A simple, clerical error. I looked at the little plastic pill organizer on the counter. Tuesday. I hadn't taken my pill yet. My mind felt clear. I decided for the first time to wait. I palmed the small white pill and slipped it into my pocket. I needed to ask her about this email. I needed to see her face when I asked. I didn't take the pill that night. I palmed it, a small chalky white tablet, and when Megan went to the kitchen to get me some water, I dropped it into the soil of the enormous, lifeless orchid she had placed in the living room. I hoped it would kill the plant. I lay awake all night, my mind crystal clear for the first time in weeks. The fog was lifting, and I realized my grief hadn't been making me confused. My daughter-in-law had. I spent the next day in a state of quiet, cold rage. I went through the motions. I pretended to be slightly groggy. I forgot where I put my reading glasses. I let Megan help me. All the while I was observing. The first crack in her perfect facade appeared on a Tuesday. I was checking my email, one of the few things I still did for myself, and I saw a message from the building's homeowners association, the HOA. It was a generic newsletter about the swimming pool being resurfaced. I almost deleted it. Megan handled all the bills, but my gut, the gut of a man who built an empire from dirt, screamed at me. I opened it. I scrolled past the information about the pool, and then my eyes snapped to the address block at the very bottom. My blood went cold. It wasn't just cold, it felt like ice water had replaced it. The letter was addressed clear as day to Mrs. Megan Anderson, Owner, Unit 30A. Owner. Not primary contact. Not care of Walter Anderson. Owner. I read the word 5 times. O-W-N-E-R. This wasn't a mistake. This was the truth. The $4 million. The $3 million penthouse. It wasn't mine. I had to be sure. I had to see her face. I waited. At 6 p.m., just like clockwork, I heard her key in the door. Ryan was with her, trailing behind as always, carrying a bag of expensive groceries. "Dad," she called out, her voice bright and cheerful. "We brought dinner. I got that amazing roast chicken you—" "Megan," I said. I kept my voice quiet, a little shaky. I held up my tablet, the email displayed on the screen. She stopped dead in the entryway. She saw what I was holding. I got this from the HOA today," I said, playing the part of the confused old man. It's addressed to you. It says you're the owner. That can't be right, can it?" For a split second, a flash of pure cold panic crossed her face. It was the fastest emotion I had ever seen. And then just as quickly it was gone, replaced by a peal of laughter. It was a perfectly rehearsed sound, like a bell. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said, waving her hand dismissively as she walked toward me. She took the tablet from my hand as if I were a child holding something dangerous. "That's what I was talking about. Those idiots in the management office." She shook her head, full of theatrical exasperation. "I told them, I said, I am the trustee. I am the primary contact for Mr. Anderson's affairs. And their tiny little administrative brains just translated that to owner. It's simpler for their paperwork, I guess. It's just a silly clerical error." I watched her. Her smile was perfect. Her eyes were warm and reassuring. She was the best liar I had ever met. It doesn't mean anything, right?" I asked, playing my role. "Of course not, Dad. Don't you worry your head about it." It was then that Ryan chimed in. He was still standing by the door, shifting his weight, refusing to look at me. "Yeah, Dad," he said, his voice a little too high. It's just paperwork, you know. Megan handles everything. She's got it." And that's when I knew for certain. My intuition, the gut feeling that had saved me from bad deals and shady contractors my entire life, screamed. It wasn't just what Ryan said. It was the bead of sweat I saw tracing a path down his temple, even though the apartment was cold. It was the way his eyes darted everywhere but at me. He was lying. And he was a terrible, terrible liar. My son. My own son was in on it. He was terrified, but he was letting her do it. "Oh," I said, slumping my shoulders, letting my face fall into an expression of relief. Okay, dear. I was just confused." "I know, Dad," Megan said, patting my arm, her smile victorious. "That's why I'm here, to handle all the confusing stuff. Now, who wants chicken? I'll fix you a plate." I watched them walk into my kitchen. My kitchen. My stomach twisted. I wasn't hungry. I was at war. I didn't say another word about the email. I ate the chicken. I smiled. I let her fluff my pillows. I was the perfect, docile, slightly confused old man. But the moment they left the real Walter Anderson, the man who built a company from scratch, the man who could spot a lie from a mile away, went to work. My first act of defiance was to stop taking her pills. I flushed that night's dose. The next morning, I did the same. Within 48 hours, the fog I'd been living in began to burn away. My thoughts felt sharp again. The world regained its edges, and with that clarity came a cold, calculated fury. She thought I was a technological dinosaur. She handled my bank accounts, but she never bothered to look at my real passions. I was a builder. I love systems. I love technology. When I moved into this penthouse, I had the best smart home security system on the market installed. Not just the building's generic system. My own. It was all controlled from an app on my phone. An app Megan didn't know existed. She knew about the smart lock on the front door. She had a code. Ryan had a code. But she thought it was just a simple lock. She didn't know that every entry, every exit was logged. Timestamps, user identification, duration. All stored securely in a cloud she couldn't touch. I waited until the next day. I told them I was going for my usual 2-hour walk in the park. I saw Ryan look relieved that I was getting out. I left the building, walked 2 blocks, and sat down in a small coffee shop. I ordered a black coffee, opened my phone, and pulled up the security app. My hands were steady. This wasn't grief. This wasn't confusion. This was an investigation. I filtered the access logs for the past month. I set the parameters. Show all entries by user Megan Anderson between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on weekdays. The times I was supposedly out for my walks or at my weekly chess game with my old friend Paul. The list populated instantly, and my blood ran cold. It wasn't just 1 or 2 clerical errors. It was a pattern. Monday, October 14th, 2:15 p.m. User Megan Anderson. Entry granted. Duration 18 minutes. Wednesday, October 16th, 2:10 p.m. User Megan Anderson. Entry granted. Duration 22 minutes. Friday, October 18th, 11:32 a.m. User Megan Anderson. Entry granted. Duration 15 minutes. On and on it went. 5 entries in the last month alone. 5 times she had come here using her key when she knew I wasn't home. My mind raced, connecting the dots. She wasn't here to clean. She wasn't here to drop off food. She was here, snooping, searching. What was she looking for? My old will, my financial papers. I scrolled through the logs, my thumb shaking with rage. I cross-referenced the dates. Monday the 14th. That was the day after I had forgotten we'd had eggs for breakfast. She had been testing me, seeing if the drugs were working, and then coming back when I was out to do what she was in my home. Uninvited, unsupervised, for 15-20 minutes at a time. A cold dread washed over me, far worse than the suspicion about the email. What does a person do when they have free run of a confused old man's apartment? I thought about my desk, my study, the small safe where I kept my old papers. And then I thought about my medicine cabinet, the cabinet she had so helpfully organized for me. She wasn't just checking on me. She wasn't just looking for documents. She was tampering with my life. I paid for my coffee and walked back to the penthouse. I didn't go to the park. I needed to know what she was doing during those secret 15-minute visits. I needed to set a trap of my own. I had to know. I couldn't just wait for the next time she decided to drop by. I had to make the next time happen now. The next morning, I followed my routine perfectly. I put on my walking shoes and my coat. Megan and Ryan had stayed the night just to check on me. They were in the kitchen drinking my coffee. "Going for my walk," I announced. I made my voice sound a little vague, a little foggy, just the way she liked me. "That's great, Dad," Megan said, her smile bright. "Get some fresh air. We'll be right here, just tidying up a few things for you." Tidying up. That's what she called it. I left the apartment. I walked out the front lobby of the building, waved to the doorman, and turned the corner onto Michigan Avenue. I didn't go to the park. I waited 2 minutes, my heart pounding, a steady cold rhythm. Then I slipped back into the building, through the side service entrance. I knew the code. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs. 30 flights. It was hell on my 70-year-old knees, but the adrenaline, the pure, clean rage burned away the pain. I got to my floor, panting, and cracked the heavy fire door, just an inch, just enough to see the hallway and the polished oak door of my penthouse. And I waited. I didn't have to wait long. 10 minutes. That's all it took for her patience to run out. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. The notification from my private security app. User Megan Anderson. Entry granted. 10:14 a.m. I watched through the crack. I saw her. She wasn't tidying up. She had clearly been waiting for me to leave. She looked both ways down the empty carpeted hall, then slipped inside my apartment. The door clicked shut. My heart was hammering against my ribs. "What are you doing in there?" I started counting. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. At the 15-minute mark, my phone buzzed again. Door locked. User Megan Anderson. Chapter 10:29 a.m. I saw her exit. She looked both ways again, then walked calmly to the elevator. She even had a little smile on her face. Smug, satisfied. I waited another 5 minutes just to be sure the coast was clear. I walked to my door and used my own code. I entered my apartment like a thief. The air was still. It smelled faintly of her expensive perfume. Where had she gone? What had she done? I walked through the living room. Nothing seemed out of place. I went to my study. The small, cheap safe I kept in the closet, the one I wanted her to know about, was untouched. My desk drawers looked neat, but she wasn't looking for money. Not yet. She was managing me. My feet carried me to the master bedroom, to the ensuite bathroom. The white marble counters were pristine. Everything looked normal. I opened the medicine cabinet, and there it was, the helpful weekly organizer. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all neatly arranged with her pills. My eyes scanned the shelves, my shaving cream, my toothbrush, and my bottle of blood pressure medication. Lisinopril. The prescription label from Walgreens was clear. Everything looked exactly as it should. I almost turned away. I almost convinced myself I was paranoid that the email was just a clerical error. But my gut, my builder's gut, told me something was wrong. The bottle. It was just slightly too far to the left. I'm a man who likes his things aligned. I always keep it flush with the edge of the shelf. I reached in. My hand was shaking now. I picked up my prescription bottle, and I saw it. Tucked behind the large bottle of aspirin hidden in the dark back corner of the cabinet was another bottle. It was almost identical. Same size, same amber color, same white safety cap. But the label was different. It wasn't a prescription label from my pharmacy. It was a generic label, the kind you buy online. The name on it wasn't Lisinopril. It was a name I didn't recognize. Diazepam. I opened the bottle. The pills inside were small white and scored down the middle. They looked exactly like my blood pressure medication. She wasn't just giving me pills. She was swapping them. She was coming in here refilling my Tuesday and Thursday slots with one of these, and I was taking it none the wiser. I pulled out my phone. I typed the word diazepam into the search engine. The results loaded instantly. It was a sedative, an anti-anxiety medication. Common side effects included drowsiness, dizziness, confusion, memory impairment, and difficulty concentrating. I leaned against the cold marble counter. I felt sick. She wasn't just planting seeds of doubt. She was actively drugging me. She wasn't waiting for me to become senile. She was making me senile. This wasn't just greed. This wasn't just a scam. This was a cold, calculated chemical assault. She was trying to destroy my mind piece by piece to make her lie a reality. She was trying to turn me into a ghost in my own life. And God help me, she had been succeeding. I stood there for a long time, the two pill bottles in my hand. One was my life. The other was my prison. The fog in my head was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This was a war. And in a war, you don't use the enemy's phone. You don't use the house landline. You don't use anything they can trace. I was not some weak, doddering old fool. I was Walter Anderson. I built a construction empire from nothing but grit and 2x4s. I'd faced down union bosses, corrupt city inspectors, and billion-dollar competitors. I knew how to fight. And my daughter-in-law had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She had started a war with a man who had nothing left to lose. I put the sedative bottle back exactly where I found it, hidden behind the aspirin. I put my real blood pressure pills into my pocket. From now on, I was only taking what I knew was safe. I walked out of my apartment. I told the doorman I was going for another walk. I went to a small convenience store 3 blocks away. I paid cash for a cheap prepaid burner phone and a $50 gift card. I walked to a bench in Millennium Park surrounded by tourists and laughing children. I activated the phone using the gift card, not my credit card. No paper trail. I dialed a number I knew by heart, a number that wasn't in my regular phone's contacts. The direct line for Nina Ramirez. Nina wasn't just my company's lawyer. She was my bulldog. For 30 years, she was the one I called when a deal went bad, when a subcontractor tried to sue me, when I needed to bring the hammer down. She was sharp, she was ruthless, and she was loyal only to me. She picked up on the second ring. Ramirez. Nina. I said, my voice low and steady. It's Walter Anderson. There was a pause. Her voice instantly changed from professional to concerned. Walter. What's wrong? You're not on your regular number. Are you okay? No, Nina, I'm not. I'm in serious trouble. I need your help. And this conversation has to be absolutely 100% confidential. No one can know we spoke. Not my son. Especially not my daughter-in-law. I could hear the faint sound of her typing on her keyboard. I'm on a secure line. Talk to me, Walter. What's going on? I took a deep breath. Saying it out loud made it real. I think my daughter-in-law is trying to have me declared incompetent. I think she's been drugging me. And I think she already stole $4 million. Silence. Nina was not a woman who was easily shocked, but I could hear her processing the accusation. Walter, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I need you to be very, very precise. Tell me everything. From the day Julia died, every conversation, every pill, every signature. Start from the beginning. And so I did. I sat on that park bench for an hour. I told her about the funeral, the sadness, the confusion, the conveniently timed pills, the stack of standard paperwork, the HOA email, the smart lock logs, and finally the 2 pill bottles in my medicine cabinet. I told her everything. When I finished, there was another long, heavy silence. Walter, she finally said, and her voice was no longer that of a friend. It was the voice of the lawyer I paid $1,000 an hour for. It was cold. It was furious. You are not paranoid. You are being systematically defrauded. This isn't just a family dispute. This is a criminal conspiracy. What did I sign, Nina? What did she have me do? Based on what you're telling me, irrevocable trust, sole trustee. She didn't just buy you a house, Walter. She tricked you. She had you sign documents that transferred your entire $4 million into a trust that she controls. You didn't buy a penthouse. She did, with your money. And she gave you permission to live in it. For now. I felt sick. So, I have nothing. You have me, she said, and I could hear the steel in her voice. Now this is what we're going to do. You are going to go back to that apartment. You are going to play the part. You are the confused, grieving, foggy old man. You take her fake pills, and you spit them out later. You forget things. You let her think her plan is working perfectly. While I do what, Nina? While I go to war, I'm hiring a private investigator. I'm pulling the property deeds. I'm getting a copy of that trust document. I'm going to find out exactly what she did. And then Walter? Then we're going to burn her to the ground. I met Nina 2 days later, not at her high-rise office downtown, but at a small out-of-the-way diner on the south side, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and bad coffee. It was perfect. No one would ever look for Walter Anderson there. I got there 20 minutes early. I sat in the back booth, my back to the wall. I had a thin manila envelope on the seat beside me. It contained the only proof I had. Before I signed that mountain of paperwork, I'd told Megan I needed to get my reading glasses from the other room. In that moment, I'd snapped quick photos of the first page of each major document with my phone. The signature pages. It wasn't much, but it was something. Nina slid into the booth at exactly 9:30. She wore a simple pantsuit, no fancy jewelry. She looked tired, but her eyes were like laser beams. She nodded at the waitress. "Just coffee? Black." She turned to me. "Okay, Walter, show me what you've got." I slid the envelope across the table. I had printed the photos at a pharmacy kiosk paying cash. "It's not all of it," I said, my voice low. "It's just the top pages, the ones I signed." Nina pulled out the printed photos. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just read. I watched her face. Nina Ramirez has the best poker face in Chicago, but I've known her for 30 years. I saw the subtle shift. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Her knuckles resting on the table went white. She finally looked up from the papers. Her expression was grim. It was the same look she'd given me when a steel supplier tried to defraud us on the Hancock project. It was her "we are going to war" face. "Walter," she said, her voice quiet but heavy, "this is bad. This is much worse than you thought." "What do you mean, the HOA email? She's the owner, isn't she?" "Oh, Walter," Nina sighed, pushing the photos back toward me. "She's not just the owner. That would be simple. We could fight that. No, she was much, much smarter than that." She tapped the photo of the thickest document, the one Megan had called the boring legal stuff. "She didn't just trick you into putting her name on the deed, Walter. She had you sign an irrevocable trust." I stared at her. The words sounded final. A trust, like for when I die." "No," Nina said, shaking her head. "Not like that. An irrevocable trust. It means what's in it is in it forever. It can't be changed. It can't be undone. And you, Walter, you signed it." My stomach felt like it was full of wet cement. Nina continued laying out the ugly facts one by one. "Based on this signature page, you are the grantor. You're the one who created it. But Megan, she wrote herself in as the sole trustee." "The trustee? That just means she manages it right." "It means she controls it," Nina corrected, her voice sharp. "She is the bank. She is the law. She has total, absolute legal control over every single asset put into that trust." "What assets?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. "The $4 million from the sale of your house," Nina said. "And the $3 million penthouse you're currently living in. It was all purchased by the trust, not by you. Walter, you don't own your home. You don't own anything." I couldn't breathe. The diner suddenly felt hot. 4 million, 3 million, all of it, gone. "But," she said, "I'm taken care of. The $5,000 a month." "She's letting you have that," Nina said, leaning in. "Look at this line. You're listed here. Walter Anderson, lifetime beneficiary." "Beneficiary," I repeated. "That sounds good." "It's not. It means you're a guest. It means the trust which she controls is legally obligated to provide for your care. She gets to decide what that means. A roof over your head, $5,000 a month for incidentals. It's a glorified allowance, Walter, an allowance she pays you from your own money." The reality of it hit me like a physical blow. The glass walls of the penthouse weren't a home. They were the transparent walls of a very expensive cage. So, I said the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I'm a tenant. I'm a tenant in my own house. Nina looked at me, her eyes filled with a cold, hard pity. Exactly. I went back to the penthouse and played my part. I was the confused, grieving old man. I took the pills she left in the organizer, but I had replaced them with simple baby aspirin. I let her see me forget where I put my keys. I let Ryan help me work the television remote. I smiled, I nodded, and I waited. Nina didn't just sit on the information. She hired a private investigator, a man named Costello, a former Chicago PD detective who, as Nina put it, could find a lie in a prayer book. A week later, we met again, this time in the back of a dark steakhouse at lunch. Nina looked pale. She hadn't slept. She slid a new thin folder across the table. "Walter," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's worse. I didn't think it could be worse, but it is." What did Costello find? He started with the money, the trust. It's locked up tight just as we thought. But then he looked into her, into Megan, her recent activities, her connections. Nina paused. "Walter, do you remember seeing a doctor about 3 months ago, a specialist Megan insisted you see?" I searched my memory. The past few months were a blur, but yes. "I think so. She said I was stressed from the grief. A Dr. Evans. She said he was a top psychiatrist, helped with managing anxiety." "He's not a psychiatrist," Nina said, her voice flat. "He's a general practitioner, and Costello ran his background. Dr. Mark Evans was in the same sorority, or fraternity, whatever. He was in the same graduating class as Megan at Northwestern. They were college friends. He has a private practice that's failing. She paid him. Costello thinks so. But it's what Evans did that matters. He got a copy of the report, Walter. The evaluation that Dr. Evans filed after your 1-hour visit." She pulled a single sheet of paper from the folder and slid it to me. I read the words, and my hands began to shake. Patient Walter Anderson. Diagnosis: onset of senile dementia. Significant cognitive decline. Notes. Patient exhibits severe memory impairment, confusion regarding time and place, and an inability to process complex information. He is no longer capable of managing his own personal or financial affairs. Recommend immediate legal guardianship. "My God," I whispered. She had this planned. The pills, the questions. She was building a case. "This is her endgame, Walter," Nina said, her eyes flashing with a cold fire. "This is her kill shot. She isn't just content to let you live in her penthouse on her allowance. She wants it all. And she wants it now." I stared at the paper. It was a complete fabrication. A lie written on a doctor's letterhead. "What's her next step?" I asked. "Her next step," Nina explained, as if mapping out a battle, "is to take this fake medical report to court. She will file for an emergency conservatorship. She'll tell the judge that her poor, confused father-in-law is a danger to himself. She'll have Ryan, your own son, back her up. She'll show them the trust documents proving she already manages your finances. This report is the final nail in the coffin. A judge will look at her caring testimony and sign the order in a heartbeat." A guardianship, like she'd control me completely," Nina said. "And here's the truly diabolical part. The lifetime beneficiary status you have in the trust. It's conditional. It's based on you being able to live independently in that penthouse." I finally understood. The whole horrifying picture. "Once you are legally declared incompetent," Nina said, her voice low, "you are no longer capable of living independently. Your lifetime right to the penthouse becomes null and void. As your new legal guardian, Megan would have the full authority to move you, to protect you. A nursing home, I said. The words felt like stones in my mouth. A state-funded one, probably. The cheapest one she can find. The moment you are out of that penthouse, she is free. She can sell it. She can liquidate the entire $4 million trust. She can take every last penny and leave you to rot in a bed, legally silenced, with everyone believing she's the loving daughter-in-law who did everything she could for her sick father-in-law. I looked down at my hands. These hands had built buildings. These hands had held my wife. These hands had raised a son. And now they were shaking with a rage so profound it almost choked me. "She's not just stealing my money, Nina," I whispered. "She's stealing my life." "Yes," Nina said. "She is. So the question is, Walter, what are we going to do about it?" I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked down at my hands. These hands had built skyscrapers. They had held my wife when she was sick. They had raised a son. And now they were shaking, resting on the sticky diner table, useless. "So that's it," I whispered. The words tasted like ash. "She's won. She has the trust. She has the fake medical report. She has my son. I have nothing." I looked up at Nina, expecting. What pity for her to tell me we could sue a long, messy, expensive lawsuit that a confused old man would probably lose. But Nina wasn't looking at me with pity. Her face was different. The grim, serious expression was gone. And in its place was a smile. It was the coldest, sharpest, most terrifyingly beautiful smile I had ever seen. "Not quite, Walter," she said, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous purr. "Not quite everything." I just stared at her. "What are you talking about?" "You just said it yourself. The trust is irrevocable. I'm a tenant in my own home." "That's true," she said, leaning forward, her eyes bright. But Megan made a mistake. A critical, arrogant, amateur mistake. She tapped the stack of photocopied pages I had given her. "Megan is a banker. She knows about moving money. She knows what a trust does. But she is not a high-level estate lawyer. She's cheap. And she's arrogant. She didn't hire a top-tier law firm to draft this document, Walter. She didn't want another lawyer looking into her scheme." "What? What did she do?" "She used a template," Nina said, her smile widening into a grin that looked like a shark's. "A standard boilerplate, downloadable from the internet template." She pushed one of the pages I had photographed across the table. It was covered in tiny, dense legal print. My eyes blurred trying to read it. "She thought she was being smart," Nina continued. "She was so focused on the big print, making herself the sole trustee, making you the lifetime beneficiary, that she completely ignored the fine print, the boring stuff." She pointed with a long painted fingernail to a single small paragraph. Section 9. B. She forgot about this, Walter. I squinted my reading glasses, digging into my nose. "The trust protector." "Exactly," Nina said, her voice full of triumph. "The trust protector. It's a third-party role common in modern trusts. It's designed to oversee the trustee to make sure the grantor's "that's you" original intent is being honored. Megan probably read it, thought it was just irrelevant legal jargon, and never gave it a second thought. "Okay," I said, my heart starting a slow, heavy drumbeat. "So I can appoint someone?" "You can do more than that." Nina's voice was electric. "As the grantor, this template gives you the sole and absolute power to appoint one." And she never read the next sentence. "The trust protector has the full unilateral legal authority to remove and replace the trustee." The words hung in the air of that greasy diner. Remove and replace. I looked at her, my mind catching up, the gears finally grinding into motion. "Change the trustee? You mean fire her As in fire her Walter, Nina confirmed, her smile now feral. As in kick her out on her ass. She handed you the gun to shoot her with. But we'd need cause. We'd have to prove she was mismanaging things. Nina actually laughed. A short, sharp, terrifying sound. Walter, she is actively drugging you. She is filing fraudulent medical reports with the intent to steal your assets. We don't just have cause. We have a 5-alarm criminal fire. We have a bomb. The blood wasn't cold in my veins anymore. It was hot. It was boiling. The old man, the confused, grieving victim, he evaporated. And Walter Anderson, the man who built this city, was back. My hands were perfectly steady. Nina, I said, my voice no longer shaking, how do I appoint a trust protector? You just need to sign a piece of paper, she said, already pulling a fresh document and a pen from her briefcase. It appoints me, and the moment you sign this, I'm going to take her entire world apart piece by piece. I looked at the pen. I looked at her. She thinks she's just one step away from victory, or I said. She thinks she just needs to get me declared incompetent. Yes, Nina said. She thinks she's playing chess, but she's been playing checkers, and she has no idea you're about to flip the board. I took the pen. Let's set the trap. I left the diner and walked back to the penthouse. But the man who re-entered that glass box was not the same man who had left. The fear was gone. The confusion was gone. I was an actor now, and I was about to give the performance of my life. I spent the rest of the day practicing. I practiced letting my hand tremble when I reached for a glass. I practiced letting my voice waver, trailing off mid-sentence. I practiced staring blankly at the television as if I couldn't follow the plot. I even took one of those sedative pills, cut it into a tiny quarter, just enough to make my pupils a little dilated, my movements a little slower. That evening, I called Ryan. My voice was weak, pathetic. Son, I'm not feeling well. I'm scared. Can you and Megan come over? I need to see you. We're on our way, Dad, he said, his voice full of that impatient sigh I had come to despise. They arrived an hour later. I was sitting on the cold, white leather sofa, wearing my bathrobe, staring at a blank television screen. Dad, Megan said, rushing in. She was all concern and efficiency. Why are you sitting in the dark? Are you okay? I blinked, letting my eyes take an extra second to focus on her. Megan. Oh, hello, dear. I didn't hear you come in. I was just thinking. What were you thinking about, Dad? She asked, sitting next to me, her hand instantly going to my arm. I don't remember, I whispered, and I let a single genuine tear of rage, disguised as senility, roll down my cheek. I can't remember what I was thinking. I saw her exchange that look with Ryan, the one that said, "He's going. It's happening faster than we thought." Ryan, I said, my voice trembling, Could you get me a glass of water? As he turned to the kitchen, I executed the move I had planned all afternoon. I reached for the heavy glass coaster on the side table. I fumbled it. It crashed to the marble floor and shattered into a dozen pieces. Oh, I gasped, flinching violently. Oh dear. Oh my. I'm so clumsy. So clumsy. It's okay, Dad. It's okay, Megan said, her voice sharp with annoyance before she smoothed it back into honey. It's just a glass. Ryan will clean it up. Ryan came running, and I watched my son get on his hands and knees to pick up the broken glass, his face a mask of resentment. I'm sorry, I whispered, letting my head fall into my hands. I'm so sorry. I think that doctor was right. Megan froze. Which doctor, Dad? The one you took me to. Dr. Evans, the the specialist. He said I was confused. That my mind, I tapped my temple. He was right. I keep forgetting things. I'm breaking things. I'm just so tired. I could feel the shift in the room. The energy crackled. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Dad, you're just stressed, Ryan said, standing up with the broken glass in a paper towel. No, I said, my voice firm for a second, then breaking again. No, it's more than that. I need a real rest. I need to get away from all this. I've been thinking. I looked at them, my eyes wide and pleading. I'm going to go away. To Florida. My old friend Paul. You remember Paul? He has a place in Miami, on the beach. It's quiet. Ryan looked at Megan, his eyes wide. I'll go for a while, I said. A long while. Maybe 2 months. Just to rest my head. 2 months. I dangled the bait in front of them. A 2-month window. An empty penthouse, a confused old man hundreds of miles away. Megan's face was a masterpiece of control. She didn't look happy. She looked deeply, profoundly concerned. She was a brilliant actress. Oh, Walter, she said, using my first name, which she rarely did. It sounded like a caress. That's a wonderful idea. Isn't it, Ryan? The sun, the ocean air. It would be so good for you. Yeah, Dad, Ryan mumbled, still not looking at me. Yeah, great. 2 months. I'll leave next week, I said. But I'll need your help, Megan. The bills, the apartment. I can't handle it. I need you to handle everything while I'm gone. I'm putting all my trust in you, dear. You'll watch the place for me. Her smile was like the sun coming out. It was blinding. Of course, Dad, she said, squeezing my hand so hard her rings dug into my skin. Don't you worry about a single tiny thing. You just go and relax. We've got this. Everything will be right here, safe and sound, when you get back. I watched them leave the apartment. I heard them whispering excitedly by the elevator, their voices buzzing like flies. I stood up. I was no longer shaking. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, my hand perfectly steady. Hook, I said to the empty, silent room. Line and sinker. The week before my trip was the longest week of my life. I was an actor. Every move was rehearsed. Every word was a lie. Nina and I had a plan. We needed to set the stage, and that meant getting Megan and Ryan out of my penthouse for at least 3 hours. I used her own tactics against her. I pretended to have a bad spell on Tuesday morning. I collapsed in the kitchen, clutching my chest. It was a good performance. Ryan turned white as a sheet, fumbling for his phone. Don't call an ambulance, I gasped. It's just my heart. I need to see Dr. Peterson. Dr. Peterson was my real cardiologist, a man I'd seen for 20 years, a man Megan didn't know and couldn't control. Megan, of course, took charge. I'll drive you, Dad. Ryan, stay here. No, I insisted, my voice a frail whisper. No, I need Ryan to come. I want my son with me. This was critical. I had to get them both out. She argued, of course. She wanted to be the one in charge, but I was panicked. I was the old man having a heart episode. I refused to go without my son. Finally, she relented, annoyed. Fine, we'll both go. The moment their car left the parking garage, I sent a text to Nina from my burner phone. The stage is clear. You have 3 hours. I didn't go to any doctor. Ryan and Megan dropped me at the hospital entrance and went to park the car. I walked straight through the lobby out a side door and took a taxi to a small diner 2 blocks away where I sat with a coffee and watched the clock. Meanwhile, Nina's team moved in. They weren't just techs. They were Costello's best. 2 men disguised as high-end audiovisual installers arrived at my penthouse. Mike, the security head, had been briefed by Nina. He knew this was a highly sensitive corporate security matter and let them in without a record. They were fast. They were silent. They were invisible. They installed 4 micro cameras, not the kind you buy at a big box store. These were professional-grade pinhole lenses that could broadcast high-definition audio and video directly to a secure cloud server. One went in the living room hidden in a smoke detector, giving a perfect view of the front door. One went in my bedroom tucked into the spine of an old construction manual on my bookshelf aimed at the bed and the medicine cabinet. The most important one went into my study. It was embedded in the wall-mounted air conditioning vent aimed directly at the small, cheap mini-safe I kept in the closet. The safe I knew she had been curious about. The 4th, that was Nina's idea. It went in the main hallway, giving a clear view of the study door, the living room entrance, and the kitchen. There was nowhere to hide. They were in and out in 90 minutes. By the time Ryan and Megan came to pick me up from the hospital lobby, after I'd had a nice lunch and a long rest, I was the picture of a frail, scared old man. The doctor said it was just stress, I mumbled, letting them help me into the car. He said I was right to be worried. The next step was the alarm system. Megan had the guest code to the building's master alarm for my unit. She thought it was the code. I called Mike at the security desk. I went down to the lobby to talk to him in person. "Mike," I said, leaning on the counter, making sure to let my hand tremble a little. I've been so forgetful lately. Since my wife, I'm worried about security. I keep thinking I've left the door unlocked." "You're fine, Mr. Anderson," he said, trying to be kind. "No, I want to change the master code," I insisted. "A new one. And this is important. I only want you and me to have it. Not my son. Not my daughter-in-law. They have enough to worry about. I don't want them stressed or tempted. You understand?" Mike was a good man. He'd worked in that building for 15 years. He'd seen families implode. He nodded slowly. "I understand completely, Mr. Anderson. A private code, just for the owner. We can do that right now." He reset the system. We created a new 8-digit master code. Megan's old code was now useless. It would do exactly one thing: set off the alarm. The trap was almost complete. The last part was the bait. I went to my study. I opened the mini-safe. I took out my real documents, my new will, which left everything to a charity in Julia's name, my passport, my real financial statements, and I put them in a bank's safe deposit box that afternoon. Then I carefully placed new items inside the safe. I put in my old expired will from 20 years ago, the one that left everything to Ryan. This was the document I knew she wanted to find. The document she would want to destroy, not knowing it was worthless. I added Julia's old costume jewelry, nothing valuable, but it looked impressive. And finally, I put in a stack of old defunct stock certificates from a company that went bankrupt in the 90s. They looked official. They looked valuable. They were just paper. I closed the safe. I spun the dial. The stage was set. The cameras were rolling. The alarm was armed. The bait was in place. All I had to do was leave the country. I packed my bags for Miami. I let Megan help me. She folded my shirts, her hands moving deftly, a little too eager. "You're going to have a wonderful time, Dad," she said, zipping the suitcase shut. "You just rest, and don't you worry about a single thing back here." "I know you'll take care of everything, dear," I said, patting her hand. "You're a good daughter." She smiled. "We'll see you in 2 months." I let Ryan drive me to O'Hare. At the security gate, I gave him a weak, frail hug. "Take care of the place, son." "We will, Dad," he said, already looking past me, already thinking about his new life. I watched him walk away. I went to my gate. I boarded my flight. And as the plane took off, lifting me up over the Chicago skyline, I didn't feel sad. I felt light. I was no longer a grieving old man. I was a hunter, and the hunt had just begun. I landed in Miami, but this was no vacation. The air was warm, thick, and smelled of salt, but I felt none of it. I checked into a $1,000 a night suite at the Fontainebleau, a room with a wide balcony overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. It was the kind of place Megan would have loved, all flash and no substance. I didn't even look at the view. I walked straight to the desk, unpacked my carry-on, and took out the two things that mattered: my new burner phone and my iPad. I logged into the secure server Nina's team had set up. The connection was flawless. 4 small, silent screens appeared. My living room, my bedroom, my study, the main hallway. All empty. All quiet. This wasn't a vacation. This was a command center. This was my war room. I ordered a club sandwich from room service. I ate it while I watched my empty, silent apartment 1,000 miles away. I was a hunter, and I was waiting for the prey to walk into the kill zone. The first day was agonizing. Nothing happened. I watched the dust motes dance in the sunlight, hitting the marble floor of my own living room. I watched the automated lights turn on in the evening. I watched the city lights of Chicago glitter outside my window. I slept in 2-hour increments, the iPad glowing on the nightstand next to me, the volume turned up just in case. I felt the exhaustion, but it was a wired, sharp exhaustion. The adrenaline was keeping me awake. The second day, I got the call from Nina on the burner phone. Her voice was sharp. "It's done, Walter. The motion is filed." I felt a jolt. "What does that mean exactly? Is she out?" "Not yet," Nina said. "It means I have officially petitioned the court citing the Trust Protector Clause. I've presented the affidavit from the private investigator. I've presented the analysis of the pills and the fraudulent medical report from her college friend. A judge is reviewing it. So, the judge will just kick her out." "It's not that simple, Walter," she sighed. "The judge is hesitant. He sees a family dispute. He sees a grieving elderly man. He doesn't want to blow up a family's trust based on paper alone. It's strong, but it's circumstantial. She can argue you asked her for those pills. She can argue the doctor is legitimate." I gripped the phone. "So what do we need?" "We need the smoking gun, Walter. We've alleged she has fraudulent intent to seize your assets. Now we need to prove it. We need to catch her in the act. We need a cannon. Right now she just looks like a concerned daughter-in-law with a lot of legal control. We need to show the judge that she is a thief. We need to show her breaking into that safe." I hung up. The pressure was on. I went back to the iPad. I watched. Still nothing. The apartment was a ghost town. The third day began. The sun rose over the Atlantic. I sat on the balcony drinking coffee that tasted like ash, the iPad propped up on the table. Still nothing. A small, cold doubt began to creep in. What if she was smarter than we thought? What if she got spooked? What if she decided, out of some rare flicker of caution, to wait the full 2 months just to be safe? What if she was already in court, filing her own motion, using her fake doctor's report, claiming I had fled the state in a fit of dementia and needed to be brought back? My plan, my whole counterattack, it all hinged on one simple human flaw, Reed. I had to trust that Megan's arrogance was greater than her patience. I had to trust that she believed, truly believed, that I was a doddering, confused old fool. She had been winning for 6 months. She hated not being in control. She wouldn't wait 2 months for what she believed was already hers. She couldn't wait. She just needed to feel safe. She just needed a few days to be sure the old man was truly gone, that the trap wasn't a trap. The afternoon of the third day dragged on. I didn't leave the room. Room service came and went. The plates piled up. I watched Ryan and Megan's joint bank account online. No large purchases. No sudden movements. They were being quiet. Too quiet. The sun set over Miami. I watched the lights of Chicago click on again in my apartment thousands of miles away. I watched the dark, empty study. The cheap mini-safe was still there, untouched. I ate dinner. I tried to read a book. I couldn't. The words just swam. I just stared at the 4 screens. 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. My eyes were burning. I was 70 years old. I was exhausted. I was starting to believe I had miscalculated, that I had failed. I must have drifted off around 4:30 a.m. in the hotel armchair, the iPad still glowing in my lap. I was jerked awake by a sound. It wasn't in the room. It was on the iPad. A sound so loud, so piercing, it cut right through my sleep. The alarm. It was 5:01 a.m. I stared at the screen. The main hallway camera was flashing strobe lights, painting the walls red. The wail was so loud I could hear it tinny and distorted through the iPad's small speakers. My burner phone rang at the exact same second. It vibrated violently on the glass table, rattling like an angry snake. I grabbed it. The screen read, Mike, Penthouse Security. I looked at the iPad. The screens were chaos. And then my front door was flung open. There she was, Megan, rushing in. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. I hit answer on the phone. Mr. Anderson, Mike's voice was a panicked whisper. Thank God. Sir, someone just used the old guest code. It failed. The alarm is going off. The whole floor can hear it. And, sir, your daughter-in-law is in the lobby. She's screaming. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. What's she screaming, Mike? She's saying she's the new owner. She's threatening to have us all fired if we don't shut it off. Sir, what do I do? Should I call the Chicago PD? I sat up straight in the armchair. The Miami sun was just starting to tint the horizon. I looked at the screen at Megan stomping toward my study. No police, Mike, I said, my voice perfectly calm. I want you to go up there. Use your master override. Let her in. Sir, let her in. Let her in, Mike. She's about to get a surprise. I hung up, turned the iPad volume all the way up, and leaned in. The trap was sprung. I watched the iPad screen, my heart hammering, my knuckles white on the device. This was it. The main camera showed Mike, the security guard, arriving at my penthouse door. He looked terrified. Behind him, Megan was vibrating with rage, her phone pressed to her ear. Ryan looked like he was about to be sick. I watched Mike swipe his MasterCard. The heavy door swung open. The alarm was deafening, a piercing, high-pitched wail designed to wake the dead. Red strobe lights from my private system were flashing, painting the hallway in hellish rhythmic bursts. Megan didn't hesitate. She shoved past Mike, dragging Ryan by the arm. She was a woman possessed. "Turn that damned thing off!" she shrieked, her voice cutting through the alarm. "I can't, ma'am," Mike yelled back, playing his part perfectly. "It's the new master code, only Mr. Anderson has it." "Useless!" Megan screamed. She wasn't even listening. She was already marching down the hall toward my study. "It doesn't matter. We just need the safe, Ryan, now." Ryan stumbled after her, his hands flapping uselessly. He looked wildly at the flashing lights. "Megan." "The noise, the neighbors. Someone's going to call the police." "Let them call," she yelled, but then her voice dropped, full of contempt. She spun around and slapped him. A hard cracking sound that the microphone picked up perfectly. "You coward!" she hissed, grabbing the front of his shirt. I told you I handled Mike. I told that idiot guard that your father had a psychotic break, that he fled the state, and that I had an emergency court order to secure his assets. I told him I'd give him $5,000 to look the other way. He's not calling anyone. Ryan just whimpered, rubbing his cheek. Now get in there and get that safe. We have to find that original will. We have to destroy it before he sobers up from whatever pills he's on and decides to write a new one. We have to destroy it now. She shoved him toward the study. I watched my blood like ice. She hadn't just thought Mike was incompetent. She had tried to bribe him. She had lied about my mental state. She had admitted on camera her intent to find and destroy my will. Nina was right. This wasn't just a cannon. This was a nuclear bomb. I watched them on the study camera. The room was dark, lit only by the flashing red alarm light coming from the hall. "It's in the closet," Megan yelled. "That cheap little safe he's had for 20 years, get it!" Ryan finally spurred into action. By pure terror, ran to the closet and dragged out the small black mini-safe. The bait. I don't know the combination," he stammered. "Then break it, you idiot!" Megan screamed. She looked around, wildly, grabbed the heavy bronze statue of a bull, a Builder of the Year award I'd won in 1995, and shoved it into his hands. "Hit it!" Ryan raised the statue. He brought it down once, twice. The cheap metal of the safe door buckled. On the third, hit the lock mechanism shattered, and the door sprang open. Megan was on her knees, instantly shoving Ryan out of the way. Her hands tore through the contents. Jewelry. Junk. Paper. Paper? What is this? Expired stocks. Junk. Her voice was frantic, tearing through the items I'd planted. "Where is it?" she shrieked. "The will, the original will. It has to be here." I watched the study camera, my heart pounding a steady, cold rhythm. The flashing red alarm lights pulsed in the dark room, illuminating them like devils in a nightmare. "It's in the closet," Megan shrieked over the wail of the siren. "That cheap little safe he's had for 20 years, get it!" Ryan finally spurred into action. By pure terror, ran to the closet. He fumbled for a moment, and then dragged out the small black mini-safe. The bait. I don't know the combination, Megan," he stammered, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold it. "Then break it, you idiot!" Megan screamed. She looked around wildly, her eyes landing on a small toolkit I kept on the bookshelf. She grabbed a crowbar I used for prying open old paint cans. "Here, use this, break it open." She shoved it into his hands. Ryan, panting, jammed the tip of the crowbar into the seam of the cheap safe door. He put his weak shoulder into it. The metal groaned. "Put your back into it, you coward," Megan yelled. He grunted, leveraging all his weight. With a sickening screech and a pop, the lock mechanism shattered and the door sprang open. Finally, Megan was on her knees instantly. She shoved Ryan aside, her manicured hands diving into the small dark space like a predator tearing into a carcass. Come on, where is it?" I heard her muttering, her voice high and frantic. She pulled out the items I had so carefully planted. Jewelry, junk, old stock certificates, worthless. I smiled from my hotel room in Miami. She was right. The stocks were from a company that went bankrupt in 1993. The jewelry was Julia's old costume stuff, just shiny glass for a shallow woman. And then she found it. Her hands closed around the thick, folded legal document I had placed at the very bottom. "Yes," she gasped. "Yes, here it is." She scrambled to her feet, clutching the document to her chest. She unfolded it under the flashing red lights, her eyes scanning the front page, and she let out a high-pitched, ugly laugh, a sound of pure, triumphant greed that the microphone picked up perfectly. "The original will," she cackled. "From 20 years ago, the stupid, senile old man, he left everything right here for us. He left the evidence." She was giddy. She was victorious. She held the will up like a trophy. Ryan was panting, leaning against the desk. "This is it, Ryan," she said, her voice giddy. "This is what matters. We destroy this. We burn it. and the state declares him intestate. Or even better, it invalidates any new will he might have hidden. This is the one that gives you everything, baby. We're rich. I watched her celebrate. I watched her kiss the worthless piece of paper. I had to give her credit. She was so focused on the one tree she couldn't see the entire forest that was about to fall on her. She was so focused on the will. She hadn't realized the will didn't matter anymore. The trust mattered. Her expression suddenly changed. The triumph faded. The smile vanished. She looked back at the empty, broken safe. "Wait," she said, her voice suddenly small. She frantically riffled through the old will page by page. "This is just the will. This is just the will." Her head snapped up. "Where are the trust documents?" Ryan looked at her confused. The what? The trust, you idiot?" she screamed, her panic returning. "The irrevocable trust. The one that actually holds the money. The originals, they have to be here. The bank said the grantor always holds the originals." I smiled at my iPad screen. "No, Megan," I whispered. "The lawyer holds the originals." She was finally realizing it. The will was just the cheese. The trust was the trap, and she was standing right in the middle of it. "Where are they, Ryan?" she shrieked, throwing the costume jewelry across the room. "Did he move them, the trust? That's what controls the money, not this stupid will. Where are the trust papers?" She was looking for the gun I had used to disarm her, but I had already fired it. She was frantic. She was on her hands and knees, tearing through the cheap, broken safe. "Where are they? Where are they?" Ryan was hyperventilating, his back against the study wall, his hands over his ears, as if to block out the shrieking alarm. "Megan, we have to go. We have to get out of here. This is a trap." "Shut up, Ryan," she hissed like a cornered animal. "It's not a trap if we find the papers. They have to be here, the originals. He has to have the originals." Her fingers, scrabbling in the dark metal box, hit something that wasn't junk jewelry or old worthless stock. It was paper. But it wasn't a thick legal document. It was a single, crisp, white envelope. She froze. She pulled it out. The flashing red strobe lights of the alarm painted it blood red, then white, then red again. On the front, in my own handwriting, thick and black, was one word. Megan. "What? What is this?" she whispered. The alarm wailed. "Megan, please," Ryan begged, pulling on her arm. "Let's go. I don't care about the papers. Let's go." She shook him off, her eyes locked on the envelope. She couldn't resist. Her arrogance, her need to know everything, wouldn't let her. She thought it was another clue. She thought it was a password, a key, something the senile old man had left behind. She ripped it open. Inside, there was a single sheet of my best heavy stock letterhead, just a few lines of text. She read it aloud, her voice captured perfectly by the high-fidelity microphone in the air vent. "My dearest Megan," she read, her voice shaky. "If you are reading this letter, it means you have broken into my home." She stopped. Her blood drained from her face. I watched her on the iPad, her expression turning from greedy triumph to a slow, dawning, sickening horror. "What?" Ryan whispered. "What does it say?" She continued to read, her voice now a strangled whisper. "It means you have taken the bait." The piece of paper fluttered from her fingers. It drifted to the expensive rug. "Bait," she whispered. What does he mean, bait? Megan." Ryan started, his eyes wide with terror. And then a new sound cut through the air. A loud click and a burst of static 10 times louder than the shrieking alarm. The alarm's volume suddenly seemed to dip, suppressed by the master smart home system. And a new sound filled the penthouse. My voice. Not the weak, wavering voice of the old man I had been pretending to be, but the voice of Walter Anderson. The voice that had commanded boardrooms for 40 years. The voice that had built an empire. It was cold. It was clear. It was powerful. And it was coming from the high-end ceiling speakers in every single room. Surprise, Megan. They both froze. Pure, unadulterated terror. They looked around wildly, trying to find me. Ryan looked like he was about to pass out. Who is that?" he stammered. Megan looked up, her eyes wide, staring straight at the speaker grill above her head. She knew. "Walter," she whispered. "In the flesh," my voice boomed from the speaker live from my hotel suite in Miami. "Well, not in the flesh, but I'm watching. Right now." Ryan let out a small, terrified squeak. He slid down the study wall until he was crumpled on the floor, his head in his hands. "This isn't a recording, Megan," I continued, my voice calm, almost conversational. "I'm watching you on the camera you didn't know about. The one in the air vent just to your left. The microphone on it is excellent. It picked up every single word. Stupid, senile old man. We have to destroy it. He left the evidence. It's all saved. It's all backed up." "No." Megan was shaking her head, backing away from the safe, her mind refusing to accept it. "No. You're in Miami. You're sick. You're confused." "I'm not confused, dear." My voice echoed through the apartment. "I've never been clearer. The pills you've been feeding me, they're in the orchid by the window. It's looking a little wilted, by the way. The fake doctor's report. My lawyer already has it. The plan to have me declared incompetent. A little late for that." Ryan was openly sobbing, now a mess on the floor. "Oh my God, Megan! Oh my God, what did you do?" "Shut up, Ryan," she shrieked, but her voice was breaking. She was still looking at the speaker. Walter, you don't understand. We were worried. We thought someone was trying to steal from you. We were trying to protect the will." I almost laughed. "Protect it by breaking into my safe with a crowbar, by calling me a clueless old man, by admitting you tried to bribe my head of security. You can't prove that." "I don't have to, Megan. You did. This entire performance has been streamed live to my lawyer, Nina Ramirez. Oh, and by the way, Mike didn't call the police when your code failed." I paused, letting the silence broken only by the alarm and Ryan's sobbing stretch out. "I did," my voice boomed. "About 10 minutes ago. I'd say they're probably just walking through the door. Right. About now." "Is that so?" The voice was female. It was sharp. It was cold as the lake wind in January. It was not a voice Megan recognized. The alarm was still wailing, but it seemed to fade into the background. Ryan stopped sobbing, his head snapping toward the door. Megan spun around, her face a mask of confusion and fury. Standing in the entryway framed by the flashing red lights was a woman in a perfectly tailored dark blue suit. She was holding a thick leather briefcase. Beside her stood Mike the security guard, his face grim. And next to her, Megan's world stopped. It was me. I was standing right there. I hadn't even bothered to change. I was still wearing the same silk pajamas and hotel robe I'd been sleeping in. In my hand, I held the iPad. The screen was still lit, showing the 4 camera angles of the very room we were in. I was watching them watching me. "No," Megan whispered. The word had no air behind it. "No? You're in Miami? You're sick?" "I'm feeling much better, dear," I said, my voice quiet, but it carried across the room. "Flew back last night. Red-eye. You'd be surprised how clear your head gets when you stop taking your medication." Ryan let out a sound like a dying animal. Dad. Oh God, Dad." Megan's mind was moving fast. I could see her calculating, regrouping. The shock was fading, replaced by a desperate, cornered animal rage. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "He's incompetent!" she shrieked at the two police officers who were standing by the door, watching the scene utterly baffled. "I told you, officers, this is what I was talking about. He's senile, he's paranoid. He fled the state. I have medical reports. I am his legal guardian. I am the trustee of this property. This is my house." She took a step toward me. "And you," she hissed at me, "are trespassing." "An excellent performance, Megan," I said. "That's quite enough from you." The woman in the suit, Nina Ramirez, finally spoke. She took one step into the room, and the power dynamic shifted instantly. She commanded the space. The police officers trained to recognize authority straightened up. "Ma'am," the first officer said. "Who are you?" "I am Nina Ramirez," she said, pulling a badge from her pocket. "Illinois Bar number 6284. I am Mr. Walter Anderson's personal attorney. And this," she held up a thick court-stamped document, "is a legal order signed by Judge Mary Ann Peters 3 days ago." Megan's eyes darted to the paper. "What? What is that, a restraining order?" "It doesn't matter. The trust is irrevocable. I am the trustee. I own this." Nina's cold smile returned. "That's the funny part, Megan. You were." She let the words hang in the air. "You see," Nina continued, walking calmly toward the center of the room. "You're a banker. You know about money. But you are not a very good lawyer. When you downloaded that cheap boilerplate trust template from the internet, you were so focused on making yourself the sole trustee that you forgot to read the fine print." What fine print?" Megan's voice was suddenly small. "Section 9B, Nina said, as if reciting a poem. "The Trust Protector Clause. A tiny little detail. But it states that the grantor, that's Mr. Anderson, retains the right to appoint a trust protector, and that this protector has the sole unilateral power to remove and replace the trustee for any cause." Megan's face went white. No, that's not possible." "Oh, it's very possible," Nina said. "Mr. Anderson appointed me as trust protector 3 weeks ago, and 3 days ago I filed an emergency motion complete with the fraudulent medical report from your college friend Dr. Evans and a toxicology report on the pills you were feeding Mr. Anderson. The judge, needless to say, was not impressed. She found it was ample cause." Nina held up the document for Megan to see. The red stamp was bright and clear even in the flashing alarm light. "As of 3:45 p.m. on Tuesday," Nina said, "you, Megan Anderson, were legally removed as trustee. You were stripped of all authority. The trust's assets, all $4 million and this penthouse, were immediately transferred to a new trust under a new court-appointed administrator." Nina smiled. "So when you shrieked at those officers that this was your house, you were lying. You weren't just trespassing. You were breaking and entering, and you did it in front of 2 of Chicago's finest." I held up the iPad. "And in front of 4 high-definition cameras, dear." The officers, finally understanding the entire sordid picture, stepped forward. "Ma'am, sir, you need to put your hands behind your backs. You are both under arrest for breaking and entering conspiracy to commit fraud and— What else did we get on tape, Walter?" I tapped the screen, and my own voice boomed from the iPad, a recording from just 5 minutes earlier. "We have to destroy it. We have to destroy that original will. And," I added, "intent to destroy a legal document. I believe that's a felony." The first officer grabbed Megan's arm. All the fight went out of her. Her body went limp. The reality of what she had done, how completely she had been outplayed, finally crushed her. She didn't make a sound. But Ryan became hysterical. He scrambled on the floor, grabbing at my legs. Dad, please don't let them. Please, I'm sorry, Dad. It was her, it was all her. She made me. She drugged you. I was scared, Dad." Please. I looked down at my son, my 40-year-old son clinging to my pajama pants, sobbing like a child. His face was a pathetic, snot-covered mess of terror and betrayal. I saw the weakness that I had mistaken for kindness all his life. I saw the greed I had ignored. I looked at him, my face carved from stone, and I felt nothing. Just a vast, cold emptiness. I pulled my leg free from his grasp. "She didn't make you do anything, Ryan," I said, my voice quiet. "She just gave you permission to be who you already were." I turned my back on him. The officers cuffed them both. They cuffed my son and my daughter-in-law and read them their rights, their voices monotone over the still wailing alarm. "You have the right to remain silent." I watched them being led out of my apartment, out of my life. Megan was silent, her face a blank mask of shock. Ryan was still crying, still begging for me over his shoulder. "Dad! Dad!" The door clicked shut, and then for the first time in 6 months, there was silence. Mike, the security guard, finally found the master breaker and shut off the alarm. The sudden absence of the wail was almost as shocking as the noise itself. I stood in the center of my living room. The sun was rising over Lake Michigan, flooding the penthouse with clean golden light. I was alone, and for the first time since Julia died, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. Nina Ramirez came and stood beside me, looking out the window. "So, Walter," she said softly, "what now? You're 70 years old, and you have $4 million back in your control." I thought for a moment. I thought about the pills. I thought about the fake doctor. I thought about how close I had come to being erased, to being one of those forgotten old men in a lonely, dark room. "You know, Nina," I said, watching the sun climb higher, "I don't think I need this much space anymore." I turned to her. "Sell the penthouse. Sell all of it. I want you to take every last penny, all $4 million, and I want you to start a foundation. We'll call it the Julia Anderson Foundation." Nina smiled. "What kind of foundation?" "A foundation," I said, feeling the purpose settle into my bones, that provides free legal help to elderly people, people who are being abused by their own families, people who don't have a trust protector clause to save them. She nodded. "I like the sound of that." "And as for me," I said, taking a deep, clean breath of the morning air, "I think I'll go back to Miami. But this time, I think I'll actually go to the beach." "Is that so?" A new voice cut through the room. It was sharp, cold, and full of an authority that silenced the alarm, the sobs, everything. The flashing red lights illuminated the figures standing in the entryway. Mike, the security guard, stood to the side, his face grim. 2 uniformed Chicago police officers were next to him, their hands on their holsters, their expressions hard as they took in the scene. And in front of them all, standing in the doorway, in a pristine dark blue suit, was Nina Ramirez. She held up a thick, court-stamped document. And then I stepped out from behind her. I was still in my hotel pajamas and my plush terry-cloth robe. I hadn't even bothered to put on shoes. I held the iPad in my hand, its screen still glowing, with the live feed of the very room I was now standing in. Megan's entire body went rigid. Her eyes, wide with terror, darted from Nina to the police, and then to me. The color drained from her face, leaving a pasty gray mask of pure, unadulterated shock. "No," she whispered. The word had no air behind it. "No. You're in Miami. You're sick. You're confused." I just smiled. "Hello, kids," I said. My voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "I came home early." It was Ryan who broke first. He let out a high-pitched, keening wail and immediately threw his hands in the air. "It wasn't me! It wasn't me! Officers, please! It was her! It was all her! She made me do it! She drugged my father! I was just I was scared. He was sobbing, a pathetic 40-year-old coward. But Megan was a cornered animal. The shock was already fading, replaced by a desperate, snarling rage. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "He's incompetent!" she shrieked at the two police officers. "I told you, officers, this is what I was talking about. He's senile. He's paranoid. He fled the state. I have medical reports. I am his legal guardian. I am the trustee of this property. This is my house." She took a step toward me. "And you," she hissed, "are trespassing." "An excellent performance, Megan," I said. "That's quite enough from you." Nina stepped forward, and the power in the room shifted instantly. The police officers trained to recognize authority turned their full attention to her. "Nina Ramirez," she said, holding up her credentials to the officers. "Illinois Bar. I am Mr. Walter Anderson's personal attorney. And this," she held up the thick court-stamped document, "is a legal order signed by Judge Mary Ann Peters 3 days ago." Megan's eyes darted to the paper. "What? What is that, a restraining order?" "It doesn't matter. The trust is irrevocable. I am the trustee. I own this." Nina's cold smile returned. "That's the funny part, Megan. You were." She let the words hang in the air. "You see," Nina continued, walking calmly toward the center of the room, "you're a banker. You know about money. But you are not a very good lawyer. When you downloaded that cheap boilerplate trust template from the internet, you were so focused on making yourself the sole trustee that you forgot to read the fine print." What fine print?" Megan's voice was suddenly small. "Section 9.B, Nina said, as if reciting a poem. "The Trust Protector Clause, a tiny little detail, but it states that the grantor, that's Mr. Anderson, retains the right to appoint a trust protector, and that this protector has the sole unilateral power to remove and replace the trustee for any cause." Megan's face went white. No, that's not possible." "Oh, it's very possible," Nina said. "Mr. Anderson appointed me as trust protector 3 weeks ago, and 3 days ago I filed an emergency motion complete with the fraudulent medical report from your college friend, Dr. Evans, and a toxicology report on the pills you were feeding Mr. Anderson. The judge, needless to say, was not impressed. She found it was ample cause." Nina held up the document for Megan to see. The red stamp was bright and clear. "As of 3:45 p.m. on Tuesday," Nina said, "you, Megan Anderson, were legally removed as trustee. You were stripped of all authority. The trust's assets, all $4 million and this penthouse, were immediately transferred to a new trust under a new court-appointed administrator." Nina smiled. "So when you shrieked at those officers that this was your house, you were lying. You weren't just trespassing. You were breaking and entering. And you did it in front of 2 of Chicago's finest." I held up the iPad. "And in front of 4 high-definition cameras, dear, which recorded you, by the way, admitting you were here to destroy my will." One of the officers stepped forward, pulling out his handcuffs. "Ma'am, you are under arrest." As the metal clicked around Megan's wrist, all the fight went out of her. Her body went limp. She stared at me, her eyes dead. The reality of what she had done, how completely she had been outplayed, finally crushed her. She didn't make a sound. Ryan was a different story. He was on his knees, fully on the floor, crawling toward me. Dad, please don't let them, please, I'm sorry." "I'm sorry, Dad, it was her, it was all her, she made me, Dad, please." I looked down at my son. My 40-year-old son clinging to the hem of my hotel robe, his face a pathetic, snot-covered mess of terror. I saw the weakness I had mistaken for kindness all his life. I saw the greed I had ignored. I looked at him, my face carved from stone, and I felt nothing. Just a vast, cold emptiness. I pulled the robe free from his grasp. You had a choice, Ryan, I said, my voice quiet. You always had a choice. You chose her. You chose the money. He just sobbed. But I'm your son. You were, I said, but you're not anymore. The second officer pulled him to his feet and cuffed him. I watched them being led out of my apartment, out of my life. The door clicked shut, and then for the first time in 6 months, there was silence. Mike, the security guard, finally found the master breaker and shut off the alarm. The sudden absence of the wail was almost as shocking as the noise itself. I stood in the center of my living room. The sun was rising over Lake Michigan, flooding the penthouse with clean golden light. Nina Ramirez came and stood beside me. So, Walter, she said softly, what now? You're 70 years old, and you have $4 million back in your control. I thought for a moment. I thought about the pills. I thought about the fake doctor. I thought about how close I had come to being erased, to being one of those forgotten old men in a lonely dark room. You know, Nina, I said, watching the sun climb higher, I don't think I need this much space anymore. I turned to her. Sell the penthouse. Sell all of it. I want you to take every last penny, all $4 million, and I want you to start a foundation. We'll call it the Julia Anderson Foundation. Nina smiled. What kind of foundation? A foundation, I said, feeling the purpose settle into my bones, that provides free legal help to elderly people, people who are being abused by their own families, people who don't have a trust protector clause to save them. She nodded. I like the sound of that. And as for me, I said, taking a deep, clean breath of the morning air, I think I'll go back to Miami. But this time, I think I'll actually go to the beach. The biggest lesson I learned at 70 is this. Kindness does not mean blindness, and grief is no excuse for carelessness. I gave my son and daughter-in-law my complete trust when I was at my weakest. They repaid me with deceit, scheming to steal my assets, while trying to destroy my mind, calling me a clueless old man. Greed had turned my family into my enemy. Never underestimate an old person's clarity, and always have a good lawyer. Did this story make you think, have you ever witnessed greed tear a family apart? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story.